way the brain responds to experience is the more certain networks get activated, the more their connections are growing and the more robust or strong that network becomes. So if a parent has been creating no brain reactive states in that child, literally the anatomy, the actual structure of that child's brain will have an overly grown reactive set of survival-based circuitry.
Dr. Daniel Siegel is truly one of the wonders of our time, a clinical professor of psychiatry, the founding co-director of the Mindful Awareness Research Center at UCLA, and the executive director of the Mindsight Institute. He is an award-winning educator. Dr. Siegel is best known as the mindfulness expert and for his work in developing the field of interpersonal neurobiology, which is an interdisciplinary view of life experience that draws from over a dozen branches of science to create a framework for understanding our subjective and interpersonal lives. Dr. Siegel has published extensively for both the professional and lay audiences. His best-selling books include Mind, A Journey to the Heart of Being Human, Brainstorm, The Power and Purpose of the Teenage Brain, The Whole Brain Child, No Drama Discipline, The Developing Mind, The Pocket Guide to Interpersonal Neurobiology, Mindsight, The Mindful Brain, The Mindful Therapist, The Yes Brain, and Aware. For me, Dr. Siegel's work is an invitation to greater self-awareness and a deeper understanding of what is required to create healthy minds, families, and parent-child relationships. Through sound scientific research, he helps us to understand that we are more than just 7 billion people roaming a planet as individuals, but rather we are one mind, sharing energy and transforming it from possibility to reality. Dan, thank you so much for joining us on Empowered Kids TV today. I am so excited and honored to have you on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'm going to jump right in by taking a step back and looking at the parental goal, the base of the parental goal, to raise kids that have a healthy body and a healthy mind. And I think there's a lot of information about healthy bodies, but not a lot of information about a healthy mind. So I wanted to start by asking you, what is your definition of a mind?
Well, the mind is a very interesting thing. Of course, some people think it's simply brain activity, and that's one very accepted view. I think the mind is actually including the brain in your head, but it's about patterns of energy flow that sometimes are like the information we have as energy carried now in terms of sound, or I wave to you, it's in visual form. And sometimes it's symbolic. So if I say hello, that's a form of information. It's energy information that's symbolizing a greeting. So I think the mind is a process that has a lot to do with energy and information flow. It has 4 facets to it that when parents know those 4 aspects, it's very helpful. The first aspect is called subjective experience. So right now, if I say hello to you, you have the feeling inside your body that came up with hello. You have the meaning of the word hello. And you know about those feelings by way of consciousness. So we have subjective experience is the feeling of life. Consciousness is awareness. And then we even have a third facet, which is basically information processing that can include awareness, or it can be independent of awareness, meaning when you're speaking to me right now, you may have all sorts of thoughts and memories and other forms of information flow that are not in awareness, but they're absolutely important and happening. In fact, most of what happens in the mind is not included in awareness. Now, there's a fourth aspect of mind that helps us say what a healthy mind is. And that is a process that comes from the field of mathematics, but it says when there's a system, like we're talking about energy and information flow that's happening in your brain, but also your whole body, and oh my gosh, it's not even just in your body, it's now in your relationship. That kind of system is called a complex system. And complex systems have what's called self-organization. It's a fundamental emergent property of the system. Emergent means it's arising from the system. And self-organization basically allows this complex system to move through time. And you can optimize self-organization and have a feeling of harmony, or you can block self-organization and go to chaos or rigidity. So a long time ago, what I proposed was that besides subjective experience, consciousness, and information processing, the fourth facet of mind is defined this way: the emergent self-organizing, so those are aspects of the complex system, the emergent self-organizing embodied and relational. So this means it's not just in your head, it's in your whole body, but it's not just in your body, it's also in your relationships. So embodied and relational process, and it's regulating energy and information flow. And a healthy mind then creates harmony in life by optimizing self-organization, which comes from a process that I simply call integration, the linkage of differentiated parts. So a parent knowing all this can say, I can help my child develop a strong mind by being able to monitor what's going on, and we can teach you how to teach your kids how to do that, and then to modify what's going on. That's what regulation is monitoring, modifying towards integration, and that creates a healthy, resilient mind.
So what I'm hearing, and I'm just going to make sure I'm hearing it right, is that our mind is a product of our inner relationship and our interrelationship.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. So let's look at the inner.
And I would also add to that, I would add one more thing. There's the inner, there's the inter, like between people, and there's the intra-nature. We're a part of nature. So the more kids can get out and be with trees and the sky and parks, you know, we are a fundamental part of nature. So there's inner, there's interpersonal, and there's intra-nature. We're a fundamental part of nature.
Okay. Let's look at the inner aspect, because I think you have two main states that you've identified that can really help us understand what health looks like and really inform our role as parents. And that's a no and a yes brain state. So can you talk a bit about what those are and why we should want to cultivate a yes brain state?
Yes, I can do that. Or what if I said, no, I'm not going to do that. You could see it would create, even relationally, you create a different response to what you said. Yeah, this is the fascinating thing, you know, even though what I just said in response to your question about what the mind is may have sounded like complicated, once we got it done, then you can see the power of it. And this, I think, is why, whether it's Parenting from the Inside Out, which I wrote with Mary Hartzell, or all the books I write with Tina Payne Bryson, you know, Whole Brain Child, No Drama Discipline, The Yes Brain, and now our newest book is called The Power of Showing Up, you know, or Brainstorm, you know, that I wrote for adolescents. All those books are about this question you're asking, like, how do you really think about what the mind is? And then in terms of these states you're pointing out, once you realize the mind is a self-organizing process, it needs to monitor what's going on and then modify it. Then what you say is, okay, well then the way you do that is that you say, what state am I in? And if you're in a yes brain state, what that means is you're receptive and you're open and you're integrated, really. You're able to link differentiated things going on inside your body, in your relational world, and you're receptive, you're open. You come with what I call a cold state of mind. You're curious, you're open, you're accepting, and you're loving. That's what a receptive state is. Cold, curious, open, accepting, and loving. Now that presence, if you will, that ability to be present for what's happening as it's happening, some people call it mindful awareness. Some people would just call it love. Some people would call it, you know, receptivity. Let's just call it for these states a receptive state. Now that's very different than if someone says, and we can do the exercise if you want, but if I say no really harshly several times, it'll activate the reactive state of no, 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 no. And what happens is people want to fight. They want to flee. They just freeze up because they don't know whether to fight or flee yet. Or they feel so helpless they faint, or some people call it feigning death, faking death. So those 4 F's are the way we've evolved with a nervous system that responds to threat. So very simply put, when your brain evaluates there's a threat, it creates a reactive state of fight, flight, freeze, or faint that are all your attempt to survive a threat. So you're in survival mode. The receptive mode, in contrast, calms down that reactivity, opens up the person to receptivity, and instead of just surviving, now you're thriving. So this is basically what we mean by bringing a yes brain approach to parenting. That's why we wrote a whole book just on this one topic, because it's so fundamental to what we do as parents. If you just take these ideas and go to a park or go to a restaurant where people are with their kids or whatever, go to a birthday party, you will see parents who operate from the no-brain state of threatening their kids all the time, and the kid is always in this no-brain state, versus parents who are operating from the yes-brain approach. And so this is something you can learn to cultivate in your life.
So I've done that experiment with you a few times, that no and yes experiment. And you would think that after doing it the first or the second time, that I would know exactly what was coming the next time, so I'd have a different response. But each and every single time I do that exercise, I have the exact same response to no. I feel closed, I feel defensive, I feel attacked, I feel like I need to protect myself. And that's even with the adult awareness that it's coming. So brace yourself for it. So I can imagine what it does.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. And then I can imagine what it does to a developing brain in a child that's just trying to explore the world and come up against that sort of response.
Exactly. Well, you're pointing out something so important, which is the way the brain responds to experiences. The more certain networks get activated, the more their connections are growing and the more robust or strong that network becomes. So if a parent has been creating no-brain reactive states in that child, literally the anatomy, the actual structure of that child's brain will have an overly grown reactive set of survival-based circuitry. So in the future then, if a friend says, hi, they may think they're going to be hit. Whereas another friend who was raised with the yes brain state will go hi back. And so you can see then, if I'm bringing that to the experience where I flinch, people are going to get very nervous around me, then I'm going to say to you, I think people are really nervous around me. Well, they are, because I'm actually bringing my own brain's networks that are overactive to the interaction, right? So anyway, that's what happens.
And you can see that as adults. Like as adults, I can look around at the people that I've interacted with in my life, and there are some adults that really believe they live in a hostile world. And so their experience is that of living in a hostile world, versus others that think I live in a loving, caring world where there are people always around to support me. And they just have different life experiences because they're coming from a different brain state.
Well, exactly. And it is just like you're saying, it's a state of mind. Like, let's say I walk down the street and I have an attitude, people are good. And some people are in really difficult times, and maybe they're really getting aggressive or getting hostile because they're having difficult times. And maybe 1 out of 100 people are like that as I walk literally down the street right through down here. Well, I can interpret, that 1 out of 100 people as, oh my God, all humanity is bad and it's a hostile world. And you may not even be able to fault me. You may say, yeah, that was a difficult thing to interact with that one person. Or you could say, look, there are 99 out of 100 that are good, loving, collaborative, people in the world, and life is tough, and some people are vulnerable, and so they do become in the reactive state. Now, then my attitude as I walk down the street is very different. I feel compassion for the person suffering, even when they're aggressive with me. And I realize we've got a pretty awesome species. I mean, if you think about it, we're incredibly collaborative with each other. You know, I went to the gym the other day, and, you know, I said to the person checking your membership card, you know, I said, hello. He said, hello. I said, what's your name? He said, his name was Ben. I said, hi, Ben. And he saw my name. He goes, hi, Dan. And I go, how you doing today? He goes, not so well. I go, oh, what's going on? He goes, I got this terrible headache, and I'm just trying to go for a workout, you know. I looked at him and I said, where's your headache? And he goes, oh, it's like right all around here. I said, oh, you need to press right here on your pressure point right there. See how that feels. And he does it, and his headache like goes away. So I said, just keep on doing that for a while, and your headache going. So I did a workout. I came back, and I'm going by the desk, and I'm saying, hey, Ben, how you doing? He goes, my headache is like totally gone. Right?
I love it.
Each other, and we can take care of each other. That's the kind of species we are.
I love it. I want to go back to making sure I'm following. So we started off by saying that we are a product of our minds, and that our mind is a product of our inner, and intra-nature relationship. And then what I'm also understanding is that what you're saying is that the process of integration, first within our relationships, helps to create that integration in our brain. And that integration, you're saying, is the basis of our resilience and our growth and our health and well-being. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Beautifully said.
So let's talk more about what you mean by the term integration.
So integration simply means the linking or connecting of differentiated or different or specialized parts of a system. So in a relationship, it could be you're different from me, but we link together with compassionate, respectful communication. In the brain, it could be the left side is different from the right, but you link them together. In the linkage, you don't create blending. You create integration where it's more like a fruit salad than a smoothie. You're not grinding everything up so it's homogeneous. That's blending. You're really maintaining the different fruits, and you're making a salad in the bowl where the integrity of each of the fruits is there, but they're mixed together into a whole fruit salad. So that's what integration is. Integration creates a kind of synergy where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, you know? And this is the beautiful thing about integration, is that you can identify, let's say, two people in a relationship and say, that person is unique, this person is unique, fine. How are they not just tolerating the differences, but actually thriving because of the differences? And you go, oh, I see, we're not supposed to be the same. No, you're not supposed to blend, become homogenous. Integration is saying, cool, let's actually become a larger whole because of our differences. So we're not just barely tolerating differences, we're actually saying differences are awesome and don't lose them. Now the next step is linkage. How can you have the kind of roundedness to say, I know what the inner nature of who I am is, but I am also an inter-nature. I'm connected to people in the planet, right? So interpersonal, intra-nature, those are the inter aspects of our lives. So then you say, okay, well then I need to reach out and connect. So yeah, I live in a body. Let's use the body as a location. So there's all the things that happen inside this body, and let's just call that me. But there's also things happening around me, that's the we. So we combine them to make an integrated identity. Me plus we equals we. Yeah. How does we sit with you?
I love it. I love it. I love it. My kids think so crazy when I say it, but I love it. I want to talk about what differentiation and linking can look like within the parent-child dynamic. Can you give me an example of maybe chores not getting done, and I'm now trying to have that communication with my kid? How do I identify when I'm differentiating and when I'm linking in a way that can produce integration?
Let's say you go to the park together and you saw two dogs running around and you're really excited about the dogs because you love dogs, and your kid was terrified of the dogs because they were barking so loudly and she thought she might be attacked by a dog. So now you come back home and you're having what's called a shared reflective time of talking about your time in the park. So academics would call this co-constructed narrative. So now you tell me which is integrated and which is not.
Okay.
You could go, wow, we went to the park today. How was it for you? And your daughter goes, oh God, the park was beautiful with the flowers and all those butterflies. But then the dogs came, it was so scary. And now you say, it wasn't scary. They were really fun dogs just playing around. You shouldn't be scared. Don't be scared. It was a fun day at the park.
So I would say that's not integrated because there's no linking.
Exactly. Now, why is that not integrated?
Because there's no linking. I'm differentiated because I can see I'm different and my view is different, but I'm not linking. There's no compassion for how she feels.
Yeah, there's no compassion for how she feels, and you're not honoring her being differentiated. In fact, you're even telling her, don't be scared.
Right.
Rather than, I hear, what's that?
I'm saying feel the way I feel. I felt it was great.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
So you're trying to wipe out differentiation.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so what would be an integrated response? Let's hear how you do it. Or I can do it, either way.
I can try. So I would say, why did that feel that way for you, honey? So really kind of explore why she felt that way. And then
she might say, I'll be the daughter. Oh, Mom, they were so big, and they were running so much toward me, and then they were showing their teeth.
I would just hug her. No, see, this is me now. So this is where I think as a parent, I move to the mirroring because now I just want to hug her and I want to say, it's okay.
That's fine. Okay, so hug her, and then you can say something really simple like, tell me more about that. Be that open. That's what receptivity isn't like, oh, let me analyze your fear and I understand teeth are really, no. You just say, tell me more. She says, oh, well, remember we saw that movie about that dog that attacked that kid and bit her on the arm and she had to go to the hospital? That movie we saw last week with your brother? And you go, oh my God, I forgot all about that movie. That movie was so scary, Mom. And that daughter, she got to have her arm taken off or whatever. I mean, who knows what movies show? So the point is that you, by saying the simple phrase, tell me more about that, you're basically saying, I am open to hearing from you what your experience is. So tell me more. And then she says the movie, the brother, the hospitalization, and the meaning of teeth for her as a little girl, and the meaning for those dogs playing, and you thought it was just a beautiful day at the park with your daughter playing with dogs. You both have differentiated, meaning different, specialized meanings because you're different people. So the beautiful thing about just integration as a concept is it guides us every time. It's absolutely amazing to what you need to do. Because if she shuts down, if you did the first thing and said, you shouldn't feel scared, and then she goes,
yeah. And
now she's not talking anymore. Why would she ever want to talk to you again?
Exactly.
Right? You're telling her how she should be rather than being open to how she is.
You know what I think we do as parents? We just jump in because we want to fix it. So I don't want you to feel scared. I want you to then enjoy this experience that I've enjoyed. So now my whole goal of this conversation is not really to hear how you feel. My goal is to convince you that you should have been happy.
Exactly. And let me show you how good I am at convincing you. And meanwhile, I'm obliterating you. I'm going to wipe you out, but at least I'll have done my job to try to make you happy.
All right.
Isn't that funny?
When we talk, because what I'm hearing is integration is the key. Integration in our relationships is the key to helping our kids be able to create that yes brain state.
And that yes brain state is an integrated brain state too. Yeah.
And what you've also taught me is that communication is really the tool that we're using to build that integration. And you have a
Yeah.
tool that you talked about from your days of working on the suicidal hotline with the acronym PART. And I was wondering if you can share that, because that acts as a great reminder for me when I'm sitting to have those moments to try to stay as present as possible. So can you walk us through what PART means?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to apologize ahead of time for people who don't like acronyms because I think it's a 50-50 split. Half of people like acronyms, half of people not only find them not useful, they actually hate them. So I'm in a little bit of dilemma because for me to be my actual self, I'm an acronym addict and I do them. I try to minimize them, but this one is particularly fun. I mean, I find them all fun actually, but PART, P-A-R-T, I think we did the Cole one earlier, right? Curious, open, accepting, and loving. And that's really what presence has at its heart. So what PART reminds us to be is present, which means having this receptive awareness. Attuned, which means, okay, now in our awareness, we're open and receptive, but now what do we do with our attention? So attunement means I'm going to be attending to, focusing my attention on, let's use the example of the park and the dogs, my daughter's inner experience. So attunement reminds me I'm attuning to her internal world, not just her behavior on the outside, but what's going on inside in her mind. R, and this is where it gets tricky, just like you pointed out, is resonance. Resonance means I'm feeling a bit, not totally, a bit of what the other person's feeling. So if my daughter says she was scared, let's say in my childhood, I had a lot of fear. Let's say my stepfather used to chase me around and beat me with a belt. And I haven't worked through my relationship, not only with my stepfather, but even my relationship with fear. So fear freaks me out. And I haven't done parenting from the inside out to work it through. But now I have a kid, right? So now we go to the park, the dogs, etc. And now my daughter says, oh, I was really scared. So now, even if I'm trying to be present, even if I'm trying to attune, if I haven't done the internal work as I'm resonating, I'm going to feel her fear. Well, if that's an issue for me that I haven't worked through, I'm going to go into reactive mode. And I want to shut her down. I want her to be happy. I want me to be happy. I don't want my stepfather chasing me around with a belt, right? Like that. You can feel the tension of it. So resonance is an important part of PART because, yeah, we're present, we're tuning, but now literally in our body, there's a whole set of neurons, I call it the resonance circuits, that includes mirror neurons, that allows us to feel the other person's feelings, not become them. So it's not exactly like mirroring. It's more like being like a sponge, soaking in a bit of what they're feeling. Then we bring our own history. So like if I haven't worked through fear, but hopefully you've worked it through and made sense of your own childhood. This is why parenting from the inside out is always the starting place. And then what you do is you say, oh yeah, I'm uncomfortable with fear. I remember when I didn't work it through, my stepfather chased me around with a belt, but I take a deep breath. My daughter's talking about fear. I want to avoid that. Actually, I'm supposed to be integrating here. So I resonate with her, realize fear is really hard and scary and you feel really terrified. So now I start communicating with my daughter with presence, attunement, and resonance. And as she hears me being fully present, attuned to her internal world, and having the experience of feeling felt by me, that is, as the parent, I'm resonating. So she sees it's not just some intellectual discussion. I'm feeling the fear of my daughter a little bit. I'm not falling down in terror, but I'm saying, oh yeah, that must have been scary. Now the T of PART is trust. So there's a whole physiology of trust in the relationship where my daughter feels like when I say to her, tell me more about that, she says, well, remember that movie your brother showed me where the girl got her arm cut off because his dog bit her on the arm or whatever? You know, you go, oh my God, yeah, I didn't realize, sweetie, that movie was so scary for you. And now we're in a park and there's another dog. Oh yeah, now you hug her, right? So there it's PART. You're playing the part you need to be playing. Presence, you're open to what's going on. Attunement, you're not just focusing on behavior, you're attuning the inner world of feelings and meanings and things like that, the mind. Resonance, you're allowing yourself to feel it. So if you have leftover issues, unresolved stuff, you got to make sure you do that work on your own time. And trust.
I think you've brought up what I think is the central problem with creating integrations in our interrelationships. That instead of being able to tune and resonate, we instead get triggered and we fall into the no-brain state, and then there's chaos and we're yelling, or we mirror and we end up wallowing in the sadness or the worry or the fear of our kids. So how can we get to a place where we can build a level of awareness within ourselves so that we can sit with our own emotions to then be able to sit with our kids as they experience their range of emotions?
Yeah, well, there is a very direct way I'll tell you about called the Wheel of Awareness. We'll talk about it in a moment. But before I do, I just want to really applaud you for, recognizing, I think, the centrality for all of us of these issues. And the way you describe the challenges are they all lead us as parents to become not integrated. So, for example, if you over-identify with your child's fear, because you have your own leftover issues about fear, then there's too much linkage and not enough differentiation. And so you've lost the balance that integration requires, both differentiation and linkage. So now you become filled with fear and overly identifying with your daughter. That's impaired integration. And you become rigidly that way or chaotically that way. So rigidity and chaos are like the banks of a river where the optimal flow of the river is harmony. One bank outside of that river of integration is rigidity. One bank is chaos. And the other extreme is, I don't want to talk about fear because it's too scary for me. I'm not going to do it. And you just shut your daughter down. That goes to rigidity. It's too much differentiation. You just go, I don't really care what her experience is. I'm going to let her be whatever it is. And I'm whatever I am. And, excessive differentiation and really not any linkage because you're really not interested in her. So that's also an impairment to integration, which also can lead you to become either chaotic or rigid. So you say, well, how do I integrate myself? And, in this book called Aware, it's a step-by-step guide to you doing just that. And the two things I'll say is that if you say integration is well-being, which I think it is, and consciousness is needed for change, like you're suggesting, how do we develop our awareness enough to do these things? Well, what I thought was, what if you combine those two ideas together? Integration is health, consciousness is needed for growth and change. And what if you integrated consciousness? So that's where I developed this thing just through this wall. There's a table, and then around that table is basically where I would bring my patients. And if you imagine consciousness has two aspects to it that can be differentiated and then linked. So the way you would integrate consciousness is you would differentiate those components and then link them. It's quite simple and really accessible. So if people are listening and say, how do I do this? There's actually a step that you can take. And you go to our website, drdansiegel.com, and do the Wheel of Awareness practice. You get the book. There are all sorts of things you can do. So here's how it works. Consciousness has, if I say hello, did you hear me say hello?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have two things happening there. You have the awareness that you heard hello, and then you have the sound of hello.
Yes.
Now those can be differentiated from each other. The knowing of being aware and the known of hello can be differentiated. So in this table, there's a central glass area of the table that's called like a wheel. It's like the hub of the wheel. And then there's this rim on the outside. So we put the awareness metaphorically in a visual way. We put the awareness in the hub and we put all the knowns like hello on the rim. So you can imagine dividing that rim into 4 segments. The first of the 4 segments is hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, the first 5 senses. Basically, those are energy patterns from outside the body. Mm-hmm. Then you go inside the body to muscles and bones and organs. What's my heart feeling, for example? What's my gut feeling? Those are your interoceptive sensations. That's called the sixth sense. That's what science calls it, the body sensation. So that's energy flow from inside the body. Then you go to memories and thoughts and emotions in your third segment of the rim. And this is where you could say it's activity of energy in your head brain. That's probably close to accurate. And then you go even to a fourth segment of the rim, which is your relational connections, your feeling of connection to your child or to your partner or your parents or your family or your friends or people you work with or people in your community or people live in your city or state or country or world or all living beings. And that's your relational sense. Let's just call it that. And then there's a spoke of attention that you systematically move around the rim so that you explore all the different knowns. And then in a more advanced stage, we even take that spoke and bend it right into the hub or just retract it into the hub or just basically drop into pure awareness. And it's a simple practice. It takes about 20 minutes. I do it every morning, and it's just remarkable how, I've done it now with 45,000 people in person, and I recorded the first 10,000 results, and the 10,000 people who did it, when they took a microphone and said, this is what the experience was like. And it's been absolutely profound as a way of illuminating the nature of the mind on the one hand, but then seeing how it can integrate consciousness. So as a parent, for example, let's say your child comes and you're talking about the park, and she says, I was really scared, and you have a thought coming on the third segment of your rim. She shouldn't be scared. Those were nice dogs. I better tell her that was not scary. And you're just about to say it. But because you've been doing the wheel of awareness practice and thinking about this conversation that we're having, in your hub at the same time as there's that impulse to say, you weren't scared, there's another thought on that rim that goes, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to honor differences. Mm. And now you even bring in thing from the second segment, my heart is pounding, and I have this queasy feeling in my gut. Oh yeah, my stepfather used to chase me around with a belt. I probably have some trouble with fear. Yeah. Wow. And then you go over to the fourth segment of relationality and you go, oh, I can see my daughters waiting for me to say something. Am I doing the part I need? Am I present, attuning, resonating, and developing trust? Because I'm about to tell her to don't be scared. That's not going to develop trust. That's going to have her shut down. And now from the hub of awareness, this pure knowing, you choose another option on how to interact with your daughter. And that's where the wheel of awareness just becomes incredibly useful, not just in relationship with our kids, but in life in general. And when you look at the components of it, it has three components of focusing attention, opening awareness, and developing kind intention that are the components that have been shown when you do those in individual practices. The wheel has them all in one. It reduces stress, it improves the immune function, it makes cardiovascular functionings improve, it reduces inflammation, it even optimizes an enzyme to repair the ends of your chromosomes so you have a slowing of the aging process, and it even integrates your brain, all these three pillar practices. So, the wheel has them all in one practice, and so it's both good for your bodily life, it's good for your relational life, and it's good for your mental life.
Here's what I found from my experience of the wheel of awareness. When we get to that stage of trying to figure out what to say, on the days I've taken the time to do my practice of the wheel of awareness, I seem to have more options of what to say that follows the part process. On the days I don't, all I can hear in my mind is, why are you scared of the dogs?
Exactly. So can you say, how do you think that the wheel is doing that for you? That on the day you do the wheel, more options are there and you're more flexible. And on the days you don't, it's not. What does that feel like from the inside out?
I think when I have that experience of dipping back into my awareness, I feel like I'm dipping into my deepest sense of creativity, my deepest sense of intuition. Like I feel expanded, like there's more of me, and and somehow the answers to life challenges don't seem so far away from me. They seem like they're in easier access. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. Yeah, totally. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. You know, at the end of the Aware book, I kind of talk about the science behind the beautiful thing you just said of why doing the wheel and gaining familiarity with a hub gives you exactly what you said. You become expanded, you become filled with more creative potential, and there's a step-by-step discussion for the reader to say, okay, now you've been doing the wheel practice. Here's the science of what this metaphor of the wheel really means. And it's just been so much fun to hear your response and to hear people who've been doing the wheels response, because you can see how easy it is. It's not like you need any sophisticated machinery or you need no machinery. Yeah. You just need your own mind and the intention and giving yourself the respect and your kids the respect to do this kind of integration of consciousness.
Beautiful. I know we're running out of time and I have one more question. And I'm putting this question in, even though it might take us slightly away from the topic of the mind. Well, it doesn't. It really looks at the adolescent mind. And it looks at one of the challenges that I think a lot of families are facing, and that's how to manage excessive screen time. Now, there's two things that I picked up from Brainstorm that I just wanted to touch on and really explore. How do we get integration in that relationship with our adults while understanding these two things? And the first is that within the changes that's happening in the adolescent mind, our kids are more likely to want to explore activities that are more unfamiliar and uncertain. And there's also at the same time a drive to really belong to a tribe that may not be the family. And so when I think of trying to have an integrated conversations with my kids around screen time, I'm also focused on the fact that for them, screen time may also be a way of feeling like it's belonging to a new tribe, because all their peers are doing it. All their peers are talking about the games or about what they watched. And so it's how do I have an integrated conversation that helps my kids become aware of the dangers of excessive screen time in a way that is more compelling than the need to belong to this new tribe. Does that make sense?
Completely makes sense. And it's a really powerful way of asking this important question. So there's a couple of things really crucial that you're bringing up. One is, how do we think about these issues and even realize that there's a problem, let's say, with excessive screen time? So that's really important as a parent to think about that. Number two, you're saying, well, how would I actually respect the needs, especially adolescents have for being a member of a group, calling it a tribe, and that's to be a member of this tribe is about surviving, and they need to get ready as adolescents to move into the world. So if all their friends are doing it, I can understand why they would have a drive to do it. So you're really showing empathy and trying to differentiate. You may not have a need to do it, but they may. And the third thing you're asking, which is so important, is how do you think carefully so that in a skillful way, you can actually communicate in a way that's going to make a difference, right? So let me just start with a couple of general comments first. The first general comment is, and this is really hard to say, but we're now beginning to learn that the companies that have designed those things on screens, apps and things like that, social media platforms, have intentionally created things that are addicting. And just like it was uncovered that cigarette companies knew that was to be the case, that tobacco was addicting and they were targeting adolescents, when the marketing campaign to try to reduce adolescent smoking, said, okay, well, let's tell the teens the facts. Let's tell them about lung cancer and edema. And they would put up these pictures and say, this is what's going to happen to you in 30 years, It didn't have any effect on adolescents not smoking. Well, why would an adolescent be worried about 30 years from now? I like smoking. In fact, I need, right? So then what they did that actually worked was they said, in these marketing advertisements, they said, did you know that this multi-billion-dollar company knows that they can manipulate you and steal your money by getting you addicted? And bam, the adolescent said, I'm not going to let these adults do that to me. And that had an impact.
Okay.
So I share this important marketing communication finding with you that as a parent, if you just say, oh, the research shows that the more screen time you have, the more anxious and depressed and, disconnected you're going to become, those are all true facts, those are truths. But I don't know what an impact it's going to have. In contrast, if you try what we now know is, did you know that the companies that do that want to basically steal your attention because they make money off the more eyeballs they get and the amount of time those eyeballs are on a screen? They actually can sell their companies or sell marketing time for huge amounts of money, and they're making billions and billions and billions of dollars by manipulating you. That's the truth. So you don't have to make anything up. That's just the truth. So if the cigarette campaign can be translated to the screen campaign, this is something you can relate to your adolescent with. Now, let's talk about the issues about it. Intelligent use of social media study in adolescents in Australia showed actually increases face-to-face time. So there isn't a blanket statement you would say that social media platforms are bad or even video games are bad. Some neurosurgeons, are much better at what they do because they play video games. It improves their visual spatial work. So we don't want to just throw everything out. It's really about using them in moderation. So you said excessive use. That's a good way to say it. So, David Rock and I created this thing called the Healthy Mind Platter, which talks about 7 things you can do every day with your mind. And one of them is focus time. So make sure you're focusing and not being distracted. So a lot of times these screens are on when kids are supposed to be focusing on homework, and then they don't remember anything they did in their studies during homework time. And you can say that we were meant to have focused on one thing at a time. A second thing is, downtime. So where you're just not doing anything, and maybe screen time would be okay during that time where you're just relaxing out, but not getting excessively in what I call the infinite. It's infinite. There's always this feeling, FOMO, fear of missing out. And also this feeling of being inadequate that the internet creates. There's no question about that. So downtime is important. Also playtime is where you're doing things for fun and goofing around, hopefully with your body, with other people, laughing. And it's not about playing a sport where you win or lose. It's just about purely the love of creativity and spontaneity. So that's playtime. So it's focus time, downtime, playtime. There's connecting time. So being with other people face to face, like literally physically present with them, and being in nature, really, really important. Sleep time, incredibly important. And a lot of times screen time is what makes it so kids are going to bed so late. So that when you put this Healthy Mind Platter as a priority, it helps screen time get reduced. Then physical time, moving your body around. And that's the 6th one. The 7th one is I call time in. And time in means taking time, like doing the Wheel of Awareness, where you reflect inwardly and you cultivate focused attention, open awareness, kind attention. These are aspects of time in. And if adolescents knew there's a way they can actually make their minds healthy, this is what I offer in the book Brainstorm, and understand that they're actually in charge of how their brain's going to be remodeling during this period. We talk about the essence of adolescence with an emotional spark, a social engagement, novelty seeking and creative exploration, when they understand deeply their essence, then they can responsibly see how to incorporate, screen time into their lives and not let it take over, because that's what's so important, that they lead a more integrated life.
Thank you so much, Dan. I want to say thank you, not just for this interview, but thank you for your work and your devotion to helping us understand ourselves better, our relationships better, and really, I think, free ourselves from a legacy of conflict and pain and move into greater awareness and love. So I just want to say thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all your work, and it's great to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We're all about sharing and supporting this village. So if you found value in this episode, be sure to share it with your family and friends. And remember, this is a weekly show. So if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified of our next episode. As we always say in the village, you're just one connection away. With love and gratitude, empower us. Until next time.